You're looking for meaning and purpose in your work.
Hello? Hello?
We all are. Every year, Harvard Business School Executive Education helps executives like you reevaluate goals and develop both personally and professionally to turn their careers into their callings. Don't be different. Be changed. Go. Start by going to hbs.me/go. That's hbs.me/go.
Somewhere in the middle of the two extremes lies a world of open discourse. Probing the depths of the in-between. Welcome to Gray Matters Radio with your host, Michael Devine.
Good evening. Another installment of Gray Matters Radio. Now, in case it's your first time joining in, what actually is Gray Matters? Well, Gray Matters is a radio show that operates somewhere in the world of the in-between. Well, what is the in-between that you ask? Well, unless you've been hiding or sleeping underneath a rock for the last, 40, 50 years, you know that we got these two things called political parties, and this show lives in the gray area between both of them. I know it's a crazy idea, I know, but for me, actually, I'm kind of colorblind, and so I really can identify a color of a political party anyway, so I figured, why not just drag more people in there with me? I am Michael Devine, your host, your tour guide of the gray. And what qualifies me to guide you on this journey, you ask? Well, I'm a counselor. I'm a counselor with a conscience, a man who's been tasked with saving the world, one person, one family, one man who saw the world going down the drain and felt guilty that he wasn't doing anything about it. So I decided to bring my own brand of therapy and apply it to the world. Now, joining me, as always, on this journey, this nebulous journey, is the everyman, Dominic Busilla, a man so preoccupied in the world of the in-between that he literally almost blew himself up trying to get there every week. Damn you, man. Every week you try to do it, and I tell you not to.
Kids, don't play with fire. It's bad.
When we have the doctor on here in a few, we may have to ask him about that. Like, what neurologically is going on that would make one man just blow himself up? I don't get it, man.
Well, if that means getting in the gray, I guess that's part of the sacrifice I got to make, huh?
Yeah, that's a gray, though, for you.
Something like that.
Yeah, so, dude, how's your Thanksgiving? Did you have a good time?
I had a great time.
Yeah, so what'd you guys do?
I just did what I do, just be a big kid.
You went Black Friday shopping,
Played all day. That would be a negative on that.
Now, for those of you who don't know Dominic, that's just a joke in and of itself. Dom would never, ever find himself in Black Friday. That's why I think this show is really I think each week we've had a show where like, oh, this is the one I've been wanting to do. This is the one where I feel like, Dom, I think this is kind of like your kind of show here.
I'm a retailer's worst nightmare.
You are. Why are you a retailer's worst nightmare? The everyman. Because they should be listening to this. Because you are the everyman.
Why am I a retailer's worst nightmare? Well, I don't need anybody else to tell me what I need to buy, or what I should buy, or why I should buy it. I only buy the things I need, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess how do we decide, you know? Because, when it comes down to snowboarding, skiing, well, we're all over that.
Well, again, I'm pretty frugal.
Yeah, that is true. You were pretty good with finding the good deals, or just working some deal with somebody.
Although I have to say, Facebook's been getting me lately, man. They know exactly what to advertise to me that I'm gonna want.
What did they get you this time? What's the most guilty pleasure right now?
Let's see. The thing I just got in the mail. Well, they're slippers, and they're light-up slippers. I didn't buy them because they're light-up slippers. I bought them because they look like Chuck Taylor Converse.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
And they were like $10. I'm like, all right, $10.
I mean, it's tough, though, because literally I just turned my phone on to check something out, and literally it goes, new deals just added. Last chance for Cyber Monday deals. They kind of get you, don't they?
It is Cyber Monday today.
Yeah, it is.
Did you do your part and buy something online?
No, I didn't. Not today.
Man, neither did I.
I actually went into the store and bought a few things. I got a cool speaker for the TV upstairs. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of dope. It's weird 'cause it's not like surround sound, but it like totally throws the sound around. So when my Eagles won, this weekend, surprisingly, I don't know how they pulled that one out. It was like I could hear the crowd booing, in the first quarter. Like it was like surround sound booing, but then it was surround sound, cheering. But at that point, I don't know, I emotionally checked out. I was happy they won, but. Dr. Osuji, who's going to be on here in a few minutes, he's a huge Cowboys fan. So he's been giving it to me a little bit, the Cowboys. But there's still one more game, Dr. Owen. I got you on mute, so you can't say anything yet. But I'm going to get you here, It's my show. I can kind of rib, right? So what are we talking about today? We are going over, I think if you saw like the title of the show, it's the Black Friday Night Fights, the Brawl in the Mall. And, it's kind of a clever, if this were like, if we were hype men for like WWF or MMA, I think that would actually be a really cool title, but it's kind of sad if you really think about it. I mean, it's, what got me on this, I made a blog post called The War on Thanksgiving, and so it's up there. It's a long read. I mean, I know I'm long-winded, but it's actually good.
It's worth the read. It's brilliantly done, Mr. Divine.
I appreciate that. Brilliantly done.
Yes.
If only,
Yes,
gosh, I need to hear that more often.
It struck a nerve with me, man. So there we go.
And I wrote that in some frustration. I was reading, there was an article about, it was in Alabama. There was a mall shooting, and basically a 21-year-old was killed by police after that person then shot a 12-year-old and an 18-year-old at a mall. And apparently the two guys were fighting, and I guess the 12-year-old got caught up in it. And I mean, we can go all day long about what were they fighting over, but I mean, literally, all you got to do is Google Black Friday mall fights, and it's kind of ugly. And we've been seeing it progressively getting worse, I think, every single year. I mean, and it's the irony, because I talk about this in the article about, if you look at Thanksgiving, I look at it, really there is a war on Thanksgiving. We talk about the war on Christmas. We can't call it Christmas, right? Mm-hmm. But Thanksgiving really is the most American of the holidays. To me, it's about giving thanks for what we don't have. It's about time with family. And you can't help to note the irony that, aside from the food companies, no one really makes any money off of Thanksgiving, right?
That is absolutely true.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's really just food, I think. I mean, that's all, and so if you really look at the holiday that really is about American values, the holiday that is completely about what we should be doing, it's that one. But yet, here we have Black Friday, and now it's like Thursday. We have people that should be spending time with their family, instead have to go and work for retail stuff that people don't need. They get to be pulled away from their families. We have people during Thanksgiving dinner that are literally itching just to leave their families so they can go and buy crap you don't need. So nothing says be thankful than what you don't have than making other people leave their families to sell you shit that you just don't really need. And am I just sounding old when I say that, or is there some truth to that? I mean, that's...
It's okay to be a little jaded.
I'm a little jaded. I'm a little frustrated.
Actually, a lot jaded.
I'm a lot jaded by it.
Let's preface that.
Because I love Thanksgiving. I mean, it's like that one time a year where, when you're married, sometimes it's like, you pick one family and then you switch off and on.
Right.
It's but it's that one time a year you really get to hang out with people and connect and just do nothing, and just, I don't know. And it's
eat, drink, and be merry.
I know, but it's gotten a lot worse. It seems like every year. And I don't know if there's an interplay with YouTube, and I don't know, but it's very disconcerting. So just like we always do, we had our intern do some research basically for us, okay? Now, so I first wanted to kind of get the whole idea. Oh, wow. So our intern just gave us, so let me look at that real quickly. So our intern right now for Black Friday death count so far is 12 deaths and 117 injuries. Is that this year, or is that total? That is, oh, wow, over the last, oh, snap. It's pretty much, the last 10, 12 years? That is crazy. I wonder how many arrests there's been.
That's actually a real website,
yeah,
believe
12
it or not.
Yeah, BlackFridayDeathCount.com. That's
kind of scary in and of itself.
That's messed up in and of itself, that literally somebody had the wherewithal to go, I'm going to register this domain name, and I'm going to, think about that. For crap we don't need.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm getting my Jerry voice. I'm getting all worked up here, but all right, this is a very big deal, right? So I wanted to kind of get a good, do some research. So I had our intern reach out, talk to some folks, and reached out to some of our people, and so I first want to get, all right, let's talk about Christmas, right? We all know there's a war on Thanksgiving, but it's all for Christmas, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Pastor Todd Garman. He is the pastor at VGF Church in Newark. Awesome guy, awesome church. Looking to a church in the Columbus area, and just want good folks that just really are about being open and just meeting everyone where they're at. Awesome church. Todd, remember, I just gave you a plug, so remember that. So I asked him, okay, so how did it get bastardized? How do you take a holiday that's about, Christ. And Dom, you brought up we call it Xmas. It's not Christmas or Christmas. It's like we can't even call it that anymore.
Yeah, that's a pet peeve of mine.
I know, but it's very true, And so I kind of asked him, like, all right, so how did this happen? And he goes, well, very, very simply. He goes, so it's about self-sacrifice, right? Think of other people, thinking about how you can help others. And then he said, then it started getting twisted into, well, I'm going to give gifts as a means to show that I'm thinking about you, how much I care about you. And then it kind of got into, well, receiving gifts from other people. And then he goes, that's where it got kind of bastardized a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at, because that's like the enemy, basically, and whether you want to call that Satan, you want to call that whatever it is, and that's where Todd's cool. He's very open with whatever the enemy is, he kind of goes, basically, you think about how can I take something about self-sacrifice, a person who sacrificed everything, their own life for everybody on the planet, and then how do you mess with that up? The most selfless, loving thing? Well, easily. You make it very capitalistic, make it about greed, make it about self-serving interests, make it about vanity, and there you go.
Well, this is America after all.
It is. And now, we're not saying that there's anything wrong with capitalism. I mean, Dom, it's just the whole idea about the gray. We all think a little bit differently, right? But it's, capitalism is not a bad thing. It's just, when we start having this happen, it goes against the very grain of American, the American ideal, the values. And when everyone's talking about, we're not calling it Christmas, we can't say Merry Christmas, and there's a war on Christmas. Well, damn it, there's a war on Thanksgiving. There's so much more bigger than that. And so then I was like, all right, well, let's go to the advertising side of it, right? So we have a good friend of ours who's worked in advertising a lot of years, and I asked him, okay, hey, what's going on? He's like, well, he goes, look at it like this. You make a lot of money on Black Friday. Long story short. So if you're like a CEO of a company going, hey, I had a crisis of I had a conscience, and I think maybe we shouldn't do this anymore because, people are dying. He goes, yeah, they're going to get fired because the profits, they're addicted to it. You can't just change it, right? But then he goes in the same breath, though, it's lazy. And he gave a good example. REI Outdoors created their own outdoor. They have like this really cool hashtag, and they tweeted it, and they did it last year. They're doing it this year. And he said, smart companies will be able to use, a positivity. It's harder, he says, not as easy as fear of missing out. But theirs was REI. Every day is a good day to hashtag opt outside. And what they say is spending time outdoors is important. So we pay our employees to opt outside every Black Friday and invite the world to join. But the opt-outside is bigger than just one day. It's about our routines throughout the year, the ones we need and the ones we need to rethink. That is cool. That makes me want to go and shop there. I have never shopped at REI. We didn't have them in Texas.
Oh, wow.
So,
very cool company. They're actually a co-op company, so
really,
they are partially owned by their customers and consumers. So.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
So what the hell is going on? So now, if I were just to say, or you and I were just, who knows they're going to believe me. So I got someone smarter than me, and well, not in every way, shape, or form, but somebody smarter than me when it comes down to the brain. So on the line, we have Dr. Julilan Osuji. He's a neuropsychologist, runs Dallas Neuro-Rehab in Dallas. Awesome neuropsychologist. When him and I have had some conversations about, the brain and how can we, talk to people about what can we understand about the brain to change behavior. He was all over coming on the show. So, Dr. O, are you there?
Can you hear me good, sir?
Oh, I can hear you, my man. How you doing?
I'm all right. How you fellas doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
Thanks for coming on the show tonight, Dr. O.
Appreciate you fellas. Appreciate you having me.
Even for being a Cowboys, fan. We got a game in a couple weeks, so I'm gonna remember that. All right.
I knew that would come up before this got going.
That is true. Yeah. So, Dr. O, so for everyone out there, what would you like them to know about you, background, what you do? Just basically think of yourself as like a witness on a witness stand, an expert, and basically saying why you are qualified to even comment on all of this.
Because Michael asked me to is the number one.
It's a powerful tool. You will come on the show.
No, but, as a neuropsychologist, that's what we do. We look at the relationship between our brain and the way that we behave. And so we can look at that qualitatively as well as quantitatively. And then, of course, there's the applied part of neuropsychology, which is what you're aware of when you send patients to me trying to figure out why do they do what they do. And then there's a theoretical side where we kind of try to figure it out, which helps guide the direction of research down the road.
Well said. Well said.
Does that make sense?
Oh, perfect. And the thing is, like, I think having your expertise and insight into this is really important, because it's interesting. In the last, I'd say 6 months, we've had like CEOs of like Google, Facebook, Apple, basically all coming out going, yeah, so we designed our products to be like really, so you're staying on it and being addictive. And then we literally hijacked your dopamine reward system and totally are playing it against you. And then, yeah, by the way, we might have kind of messed up an entire generation of your children and yourselves. My bad. We are going to try to do better. So, and to me, that's almost like, is that almost like, oh, we're probably going to be sued here in a little bit. So maybe if we come out and just say, oh, okay, maybe my bad, maybe that will lessen the blow. So we already know they're using psychology against us. We know in politics, as Ron, the opinionated veteran last week, our psychological operations guy, basically said, oh, no, they're hiring all of us when we graduate or after we get down to the military and hiring us to basically change the heart and minds of everybody using what we used on the enemy and their people. So we know what's happening. So they obviously are using our brain chemistry against us. So I guess like the big first question I have for you, Dr. O, is, what is it that you're seeing, especially of all this Black Friday, and how is it like stuff we don't even need? How is that leading to aggression and now people getting killed?
You know, it's funny you should ask that because I hadn't really thought about that until you mentioned the topic that you guys would be discussing tonight. And, there's been a lot of research done over the years trying to tie neuroanatomical, structures to and the function of them to antisocial behavior and sociopathy, as you know. And the most frequently found link has usually been that, there's some kind of reduction in the actual function or in the size of the structures in the frontal lobe for people who have antisocial personality issues. And then, of course, there's some of those folks who just have significant impulse control issues. Now, this can also happen in normal individuals. The problem is more of a biopsychosocial explanation, in that sometimes we lose sight of the fact that other people have needs that may be incongruent with ours, but in the grand scheme of things, actually may be more reasonable than our needs or our perceived needs. Let's put it like that. And what you find a lot of times is people are put in a position of having to think of others, but failing to do that time and again. And that's also tied to the frontal lobe.
And the thing is,
executive function.
Well, I was going to say, you could probably speak to this one a little bit more, but so there was research, I know it came out, I think it was a couple months ago, where they were talking about there's two parts of our brain. There's one part of the brain that we use when we're thinking about other people. We can get into an argument later about real altruism. But then they identified very specifically in functional MRI the part of the brain that we're thinking about when we think about ourselves, and that they're actually mutually exclusive. You can't be thinking about yourself, selfishly 100% and be thinking about somebody else. And when you see these videos, we're talking, we have kids, being trampled all over, people that probably in their regular life would probably not do that. We have literally things being ripped out of their hands, kids crying. The things that people are doing, and that's where part of me is like, is that are they almost, is that like a byproduct? Are they riling us up to where we're thinking in a certain way where empathy basically goes out the window?
Right, and that's exactly it. Goes back to a really old theory. That's what I haven't seen that specific research, but it seems very clearly tied to an old theory of the mind, and that's that ability to kind of take our mental state and attribute it not only to ourselves but to others. And so if we're able to actually understand, that others' beliefs, perspectives, intentions can be different from our own, as part of theory of mind, is an executive function that says that, hey, you know what? If I can understand where this person is coming from, I can be empathic towards that person. And that's why theory of mind was judged to be crucial for making good moral judgments. Does that make sense? And so,
yeah, it even kind of gets in that biopsychosocial factor of, can we, I don't know what the right word is, but is society, when you look at social media, it's about me. It's about me. It's about me. We have, there's a great book by Dr. Gene Twenge called Generation Me, and how like narcissism levels have been rising, literally every single year since like the mid 70s in relation to the self-esteem movement. You almost kind of wonder, is it like a perfect storm? Are they doing the same things? Because I mean, Dr. O, how old are you?
I'm 46.
So, I mean, and Dom,
I'm 42.
So, I mean, honestly, do you guys feel like there's any big difference between how they advertised when we were kids growing up and now? I mean, do we really feel like there's that big of a difference?
I think there is. I think there's a bit more of a subtle and calculated approach to advertising today, and is designed to tap into exactly what you were just talking about, which is me, regardless of what the potential effect of that could be on self and others, as well as the environment.
So, I mean, is there a line that should get drawn? Because Dom, like for you, it doesn't work for you. You obviously don't care about it. What is it about your upbringing or your value system that stops you from buying into it?
I guess I was taught to share at a young age. I don't know. I don't know. I put others first most of the time, sometimes to my own demise. But that's just what I do. I don't know.
It's interesting, yeah, because Dr. O, you and I have talked a lot of times, just, when you and I, because Dr. O and I were in the same practice, and and that was one of the things him and I talked about. Like, Dr. O was like the most trusting, awesome guy, and he's like, "Ah, man, I trust you. You got this. We'll figure it out later, right?" And it's like that intrinsic trust and compassion and empathy that it seems like all of us have. Like, I don't think any of us would stomp over the other person to get a big screen, right?
I don't know. Is that
right?
Just
but you have to remember. Sorry.
Go ahead, Doctor.
No, you have to remember, Mike. You and I have also talked about the fact that those of us that grew up in the 80s and 90s, before this generation, kind of came along that decided that it's all about me and me alone. We also were taught, like Dom said, to share. We came up in an environment in which it really is to some extent. Look at today. Just pay attention to how people discipline their children today. So in my day, you understood that you didn't want your parents to be made aware of you being disrespectful to an authority figure.
Oh, gosh, no.
Oh, yeah. That'd be bad.
What's the difference today's day and age? These kids are daring you to contact their parents.
Oh, well, the parents then feed it. Like, I was talking to a teacher about this today, and I go, I remember when I grew up, even if, like, your parents thought maybe the teacher was out of line, if the teacher says you were in the wrong, guess what? You were in the wrong. Now you have it to where the parents, because it's almost like by proxy, if my kid's not acting right, that means you're saying I'm a bad parent and I can't take that, so I'm going to blame the teacher. So that diffusion of responsibility.
Absolutely. My sister, as a teacher, could probably back that up.
Ooh, that'd be a good one. We'll have to add her to the list.
We'll table that topic.
Absolutely. But so if you look at it from, like you were saying, Mike, biopsychosocial model, for each and every one of us, it's much easier to avoid behaviors like what you were talking about, beating people up, trampling each other for a TV or some toy of the day that will be gone tomorrow and things of that nature, when we think of each other as being the same, when we think of each other as having the same needs, the same desires, when we think of each other in terms of, this person might actually need this more than I do, things of that nature. But we don't do that anymore. And it goes back, if you remember your social psych stuff of in-group, out-group, those kinds of dynamics playing a role. It plays a role. Even in politics, as you alluded to earlier, people intentionally try to create us versus them, in-group versus out-group dynamics in order to get people to vote against their own well-being and their own best interests and things of that nature.
And it's amazing because, like, every expert we talk to, and everyone is basically painting the same picture of, it's like, it makes perfect sense. This is what they're doing, and they're actually really good at it. And that's where it begs the question. And Dr. Ehrlich, and I've been starting to say this a lot more because I think, think about like Donald Trump, right? Heck, there was a big debate about whether or not people, psychologists, counselors should be talking about the president's mental health, right? And it's like, that's just fruitless. What's the point of him doing that? We all get sucked into it. But here we are, all talking, about these personal experiences we've seen on TV with our clients and seeing all these downstream effects with society and social media and politics and Christmas and capital, and why are we not all banding together to basically go, listen, the things are not good. We're the ones that are basically the feet on the ground. And this is what we're seeing. I mean, I don't understand. Maybe we should start having more of these conversations, not just us and our show and our listeners, but why isn't ACA? Why isn't APA basically saying these things? And why are we talking about the tabloid stuff? And why are we not talking about the things we can actually prove?
Part of what we've noticed, as you know, with APA being the American Psychological Association, is, I assume, the one that you're referring to, and not American Psychiatric Association. But part of the issue with that, as you know, is there's an unspoken rule in mental health in general that you don't diagnose someone that you've never seen clinically, right? So I think that's part of the hesitance that you see, the reticence you see from APA to speak out on, for instance, the president. But by the same token, anyone, a layperson, has to do is pick up their phone, Google the characteristics or diagnostic criteria for narcissism, sociopathy, whichever one, and you will find that, based on what they say here, as far as like the number of these criteria you need to demonstrate to be diagnosed with this, oh my God, our president may have this condition. It doesn't take a genius. And then you look at the way he consistently mischaracterizes the truth, to be nice, or lies, and paints things that we can see and hear with our own eyes and ears in a very different light from what we've just observed. So we talk about all of these things, but I think as everyone talks about, the president is assaulting our institutions, our democratic institutions, blah, blah, blah. He's also insulting and assaulting our intelligence in a manner that we have not experienced in years.
Well, I think the rejection of reality, that's something that's kind of really, even if let's say you agreed with his policies, it's that's not the truth. No, that's not my truth. And if that's not my truth, well, then it doesn't matter at all. And then it's almost like it's like constructivism. I feel like it's almost like philosophy 101. We're literally talking about how do we construct our view of reality. And now we have politicians and we have people in the media. We have all this literally, like, we're going to almost get you to immediately reject everything that you're actually seeing with your eyes. And I can't remember the social psychology term, Doctor, you might know it, where the person's an authority figure. You will accept their viewpoint of the world and reject your own viewpoint, which is why they have celebrity endorsements of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a lot of power in that, I think. And I guess where we start now begging a question of it's, okay, if all of us are kind of in agreeance with, all right, our politicians, our media, the companies and how they're marketing are obviously stepping over line. We know in the 60s and 70s they outlawed subliminal advertising because it just was going through the subconscious and wasn't right. Technically speaking, and I'm curious if the research backs this up, is that for the very same reasons why we don't do subliminal advertising, in my mind, is there any evidence to show that what's going on now with social media, mainstream media, the advertisers, that it's actually even more detrimental to it? And then if it is, why is it not outlawed then? I mean, it's a really good question.
No, that's a really, really interesting question. I think social constructionism, if you think of it from just understanding that what people are communicating, in essence, doesn't always jive with their true belief system, and so you may know the term cognitive dissonance, where you're saying one thing, but your behavior is contradictory to it. And it causes you some significant emotional distress. I think that that's what a lot of people are struggling with today with regard to what they're seeing, what they're taking in on social media, what they're taking in from all of these various sources that we know are not necessarily well vetted. And as a consequence, they're making decisions that allow them to continue to move forward, if that makes sense. I'll give you an example. Someone that I evaluated recently in my office, he's suspected of having a mild dementia or at least recent onset of dementia. And I shared with him that, I feel like you're not quite there yet as far as like your cognitive decline is not sufficiently beyond what you would expect for normal aging for us to be talking about dementia. But what his family surprisingly agreed wholeheartedly with was when I diagnosed him with narcissistic personality disorder. And his wife and children said, oh my God, that is him to a T. Part of the reasoning for my even going there with that is that there's a guy who claims to be a Christian, but yet he said, and I quote, I don't give a damn about those babies being taken from their parents. They shouldn't be coming here in the first damn place. Now think about that with regard to what we've been talking about, in-group, out-group, us versus them, demonization of the other in order to justify doing whatever you want to do, no matter how immoral it may be.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean,
wow.
You think about it, a devout kind of Christian
Wow.
is basically going, I don't care. I normally would care, but I don't care. I've been made to not care.
Right.
I mean, that's so... I mean, and think about it, and then bring it back to Black Friday. I know that's just a TV, and I know you're just a child, but I don't give a damn. I want that TV. And so think about I know they use fear. That's what, I don't know if you listened to our show last week, Dr. O, but one of our guest name is Ron. He's a former Army veteran, worked in campaigns, and did psychological operations. And one of the things he was talking about was how different groups use different emotions and massage that emotion because they know it's incredibly effective. And so think about the amygdala and that fear response that we get and how intense it can basically kind of be. And it's like basically we're rewiring a Christian who normally would care about I don't care. Rewiring, that's a child, and this is just a TV, and now it's been a new paired association. And to me,
right.
That
to me is speaking volumes.
Well, fear of loss is a
It makes
very
sense.
powerful sales tactic. I mean, no matter how you look at it, right? Especially if you can tap into that in that person's brain, that they are going to lose that killer deal.
Yeah,
Well,
and think about it. So our intern looked this up for us. Okay, so they broke down. This is. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this one, Doctor, because this kind of gets into that biopsychosocial, socioeconomic thing of. So you look at the top 5 states where they have the most amount of violence, reports of violence, arrests, murders, on Black Friday is Arkansas, Alabama, Tennessee, North Carolina, and West Virginia.
Are you
and it's
serious?
on reviews.org. And once again, we'll have all these posted up on the website so you can look it for yourself. And then they have the safest states with the fewest amount. Now, given it could be population density, but it was like Oregon, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Vermont, and Rhode Island. Do you think there's anything to that? I mean, there's a lot of red states, down there. Do you think there's anything to that? Could it be an SES factor that goes into it?
Well, I don't know if it's purely SES, but it does make sense if you consider the fact that the way that people who pull from those areas politically, what do they oftentimes campaign on?
Fear. Fear,
Policy
change.
Fear-mongering.
Yeah.
Hate, things of that nature. Resistance to change, resistance to, progression and evolution and things of that nature. And technical is what I mean, technological evolution, things of that nature. And it would make sense that if you've been conditioned in this way that, you mentioned the amygdala earlier. As we know, it's involved in emotions, fear. But if you think about it specifically, it's supposed to prep you for defensive reactions to external threats, right?
Yeah.
So even if we perceive an external threat or prep for action, even when there's not a legitimate threat, just the perception of the threat. And that's all that, I mean, look at what Fox News did a few weeks ago with the caravan and whipped people into a frenzy all the way up in parts of the country where nobody's about to walk up to, that they're going to come and take their home.
But that's the truth, though. I mean, it's amazing. I think you brought up a really good point. It was interesting. This is a theory that I had about airplanes. Because there's all, I mean, we all know, I mean, it seems like every other week there's someone getting their ass handed to them on an airplane or someone going crazy. And they did this study where it was about personal space boundary violations. It had to do with the amygdala. And so they had people hooked up to a functional MRI, which is a type of brain imaging that looks at how your brain is functioning in that moment. And what they did, they do this personal space violation where they had someone kind of get up in their business basically and almost attack them almost, and seeing what part of the brain lit up, and that part of the brain starts firing, and that's where that defensive reaction is. And then it was interesting, people that tended to have depression, anxiety, ADHD, that part of the brain lit up for, I think it was 20% longer and 20% more in those folks. And so we kind of bring it back down to, okay, the amygdala, are these people already just kind of primed? Because I feel like in an airplane, personal space violation, we have less space, more and more and more. Are we purposely triggering the amygdala to where all it takes is one small thing, now we're snapping, and that reaction is so visceral and intense, it's almost like you can't help it. It almost very much mimics and mirrors what we're seeing like on Black Friday. That are we talking about people that are already kind of primed for something, and then someone takes it, you're going to try to take mine. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be nothing. It could be literally something of no value, but if you're going to take something of mine, and I've been so primed that everyone's trying to take what I got, I don't care what it is. I'm parking spot, I don't care.
You're going to protect yourself.
Yeah. So now,
right.
Or the fear,
Right.
or like you said, doctor, the perceived fear, perceived need to protect.
That's it, brother.
yeah.
That
So
is the key. And even actors and actresses, if you think about what they do, it is tapping into those things, that basically fooling the brain into believing that I'm having this reaction. And even on MRI, functional MRI, like Michael was talking about, you will see the same reaction as though he's really experiencing that emotion, even though he's acting.
Wow.
So that perception is powerful enough that it can cause us to act, even when it's not a real, threat to us.
So this change we're talking about. So I think there's a lot of evidence out there, okay, that shows, obviously the methods and modes to which people are advertising, and sometimes it's like more of a big social kind of issue, the politics. So it's all playing into it, but it's like the brain is obviously being triggered, and then there's these intense reactions. I guess the question is, are we talking about, is this a temporary change, or is there research out there that show that we're actually seeing permanent structural changes in the brain where even if we were to stop doing all this, we have like an entire lost generation from like plasticity? I mean, what does the research show?
Now, I don't know that I've looked at anything specifically looking at that, but I can tell you that because most young men are approximately 25 by the time their brain is considered fully developed, that there's still plenty of opportunity to reprogram. And young ladies usually around 21. So there's still plenty of opportunity for reprogramming. But what we know is that reprogramming is a multi-layered kind of thing. It can't just be done at the micro level. You know what I mean? It has to be done on multiple levels, macro and so on, in order for it to take effect. So you and I and Dom can get out here and spread the good word that, hey, we need to get back to caring about each other and having a sense of a village in our neighborhoods and everybody looking out for each other's kids and so on. But if others at higher levels that reach greater numbers of people and people at smaller levels in neighborhoods that maybe don't have access to hear us and so on, are not preaching the same message, are not teaching the same things, how far can we really get with our messaging?
And that's really cool because like Dom has a nonprofit that he runs. It's called Hero USA, and it's about almost exactly what you talk about. It's getting kids outside, a lot of inner city kids, very much about mentorship and building up self-esteem and connecting with each other and seeing the value of talking and learning. And so that's a very powerful thing. I think you're right. It does kind of just begin with the home, and it begins with, the influences. And if there is no influences, hey, what are resources that are out there? I mean, Dom, that's the whole reason that you started Hero, pretty much.
But to go back to what Dr. O just said, myself and my team, we can advocate, we can teach, we can pass on those values. But if they're going home and they're not receiving that same conditioning, if they're going to school and they're not receiving that same conditioning, and we're only a minute influencer to the grander scheme of what their experiences are on a day-to-day basis, we can only do what we can do. And sometimes it's I see it a lot. Kids come to the program and they can't stay in the program because of all of the other factors that unfortunately we just don't have that
control over.
Yeah, we don't have the reach, just like Dr. O said.
It's the truth. It's the truth, brother. We appreciate you doing that work because it's still important.
Yeah.
It's important.
It is awesome, and it's and I think that's kind of like the whole point of what we're doing the show. It's about, can we get people to think in a different way, engage in a different way, where maybe they walk away going, I still think they're full of crap, but they had a point there. And if that's all that we accomplish by any of these, well then, hey, great.
Michael, if you think about it, if I may, that's the same thing you were talking about with respect to treatment for substance abuse. Remember, in terms of what you can accomplish in the treatment facility, is quickly destroyed once they return to their normal environment, and then you have that's the reason why you have such a high relapse rate.
Well, they did this really cool study with rats, and it got rats addicted to cocaine. And they had it to where you can choose, once they got addicted, you can choose water or the cocaine-laced water. Well, literally, they would starve themselves to death. They would literally go and keep going to the water, even though they were pretty much dying. So, and it was one of those, they go, look at the power of a cocaine addiction, right? But then someone basically went, it's like 10 years later or so, and they went, well, there's a con found, because the rats were by themselves, and rats are actually very sociable creatures. So they go, let's redo the experiment. So they retested it. Same thing happened, but they go, this time, let's make them have a choice. We're going to put them in a colony of rats that aren't addicted to cocaine. So we're going to get them addicted first, and then we're going to hook them up, basically, with all these other rats, and then we're going to give them the same choice again. But only this time, if they choose a cocaine, they have to be by themselves. So if they choose a cocaine, they isolate them. But if they don't choose a cocaine, they choose a regular, then they get to hang out with their friends. Mysteriously, when they were in the rats that were not using, and they had choice, they stopped using. And so that environment is huge, but also shows that neurochemistry as well. And so
it plays a big role.
And that's where I know we're getting close to running out of time here, so maybe there'll be another conversation for another day. But it was one of the points I kept bringing up, is that we wonder why addiction is getting so bad. We wonder why we have a generation of kids who just don't want to feel. They can't handle anything. And then when all we've done is just reinforced and massaged, I want what I want it now, I get it now, valuing material goods basically over anything else, it's the end-all be-all. It basically is a perfect recipe for, we wonder why kids and all they want to use is drugs, that they just want that intense kind of feeling, and then all of a sudden the failure to launch problem of kids looking at you, so you want me to do all this stuff, so I buy stuff and get stuff I know it doesn't make me happy, and you want me to buy into it. There's a connection between all of it. There's all these problems in society, and what is the common running thread behind all of it? And that be my conspiracy theory. It might be jumping way too many blocks down the street, but I think this is such a big deal. And I think if it's on families and organizations to serve one role, Dr. O, with everything you've learned, everything you've heard, do you think the businesses, do you think companies, do you think government maybe should start looking into regulating this, and that it is causing a lot of problems, and that just like they outlawed subliminal advertising, do you think there needs to be somebody stepping in to go, no, this is not good?
I think that has to come from parents, to be frank, for that to even have a chance of going anywhere. Parents have to make the noise. Let's be clear. All of these businesses respond to one thing and one thing only, and we all know this. bottom line.
Sales,
If
yeah.
parents make it clear by saying, we're not going to spend on blah, blah, blah until you do such and such, it is done, and it is done quickly.
Wow.
But as long as there's parents who are still out there spending on it, there could be a million of us over here marching and talking about it. They don't care about us.
Mm-hmm.
But then
So
the problem is, are we in
really
that then vicious cycle of people are so kind of sheeple, don't really know and realize that this is going on, and then they don't even know to stop it. And so then is that the role of our government? Is that the role for them? Is that role of us clinicians to go, y'all better do something because they don't realize it?
So your theory is that a lot of these parents don't even realize that it may be negative behavior.
I think they're so entwined in it themselves, they're so bought into it. That cognitive dissonance Dr. O talked about. It's like for them to let go of it.
Dr. O, what's your thought on that?
You know, honestly, it's one of those things. A bunch of guys that are really cool guys, great guys. I had dinner with them not too long ago, and these are a bunch of all of them were African American gentlemen who are very professional, doing very well. You know, but they live. You don't know, Dom. You don't know this area, but Michael kind of does. Frisco and West Plano. You know what I mean? Area of Dallas, and so they're somewhat affluent. You know. They're doing okay.
they're doing all right. They're not struggling this holiday season.
The city
and they're asking me questions like, but how do we keep our kids from becoming like some of these kids today who are spoiled and who have no sense of others' needs and things of that nature? Because like me, most of them are people who grew up in the Oak Cliff areas and the areas of that nature, you know. So they're self-made, they're first generation, you know, somewhat affluent people, and they want their kids to be grounded. And so they're asking me, well, how do we do this? And I'm going, oh, hell if I know, I'm trying to do it as you are.
That's the trouble. I mean, we know it, and then the pressure of society and the pull that it has. I mean, it's scary to be a parent now because we have less influence over our children than we've ever had before. And that is scary. But I think there is reason for hope because I think there's more and more people like all of our ages who have kids and we've seen it. And we're all almost kind of going, nah, F that. You ain't going to get that G.I. Joe, the Kung Fu grip. Screw that. Well, I want it. Well, tough shit. I guess you'll get it next year, you know? And so maybe there is going to be a swing in the opposite direction. But I think you bring up a good point. It's like, dude, parents, the buying power, and with social media, it won't take that long. All you do is got to organize it, but we have to legitimize it. And I think that's the problem is what can we do as clinicians? And I think having the very real...
You know where the legitimacy might come from, Mike?
Where's that?
Recently, there's been a lot of articles put out and statements put out by the different pediatric organizations that we have in our country. And the take-home message from all of that is if you want your kids to have a shot, if you want your kids to have something somewhat resembling what you had in the way of a childhood, the things Dom's trying to create for the kids that he's working with and so on, you might want to cut down that screen time.
Yep. Amen, man.
There it is.
Yeah, that's
and
it right there.
Recommending no more than 30 minutes a day, you know, of screen time in order to give your kids a legitimate chance of having somewhat of a normal childhood, at least.
And the researchers even said 30 minutes is technically too long. That was almost like it almost seems like because how research you have like these team of like, you know, be 12 authors and like a lot of times they'll kind of agree upon it. And the way the guy made it sound was, I mean, yeah, 30, that was pretty much the compromise, but I think 30 is even too long. That's like saying how many cigarettes is okay. But it's
but I think any cutback is positive progress, if you ask me. You know, compared to we've all been at dinner. You know, you see a family of 4 or 5, and everyone is on the phone, and no one is conversing. The only time they speak is when the servers interact with them. You know, and we make it a point not to allow our kids to take their iPads and things of that nature to dinner.
He's a man of man. I'm telling you, Dr. O is a good dude, you know.
Yeah, I have an inherent issue with screen issues and just the lack.
We all are, my friend.
For
we all are, but we got to stand strong together and holding the line against that.
Setting the example, because think about social psychology. If no one in a restaurant is on their phone, well then, I mean, think about Dr. O. We had a couple weeks ago, we're all hanging out, probably 3-4 hours hanging out, having some drinks, having some good food. Did anyone bring out their phone even once? Maybe to like check the phone, going, "Oh snap, I got an early flight tomorrow. This is gonna be a rough morning."
Right.
But think about it, like 4 hours talking, not one phone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think maybe it was maybe a couple random times to look up some trivia. What year did that come out? But I think there's something there. So
I have no problem when I'm with people that are doing that.
I know you don't. It sounds like I gotta put with that.
Somewhat politely, yet very then politely telling them to please put their phone down. And
See, we gotta get Dr. O. We gotta get him up to Columbus here sometime. There has to be a conference because you two are like, you guys are gonna have a good time when we go out.
We go down there.
You know what I would love, guys? I would love it if the Cowboys somehow, some way, miraculously won a Super Bowl. We know it won't happen.
All right, so this is where he goes from the sane and rational to the delusional really quickly.
There we go.
But I will admit here, we'll make a lighthearted here as we close up. I will admit your Cowboys had the upper hand against my Eagles last week. I don't know what's going on with my team. I'm not a homer. I will admit my team is a radical disappointment this year, But, hey, you know what? It'll be an interesting... I mean, we can make a little wager, Dr. O. I mean, we got one more game going. I will say, how about next time we're down, winner, loser pays for dinner. What do you think?
Done.
We'll go back to Del Frisco's or Bob's or something, all right? I mean, it'll be a good bet, all right?
I'm in. Dom, you heard this, right? So he can't weasel out of it.
Yeah, we'll all bring it down. So, but as we close up here, thank you so much for coming here. I know very busy, and I just thought it was so awesome having your insight, basically into it, and it was absolutely awesome. I want to give you an opportunity. You have some really cool projects going on right now. Talk to everyone about some of the research you guys are doing, and once again, plug everything you got, because I want to make sure people know where to find you.
Well, I appreciate that, Michael. I'm not going to take up too much of your time, but we do have some really interesting research going on with our research partners at Curran Research Center, and it's curranresearchcenter.com. And so we're looking at people who have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease with specific therapy for that. Of course, there's all kinds of criteria for, passing into the study, but, the study coordinators will go through that with anyone who wants to call in and see if they qualify for any of those studies. We have studies for people who are not demented but have dementia, specifically Alzheimer's type dementia, in their families. So basically, we're trying to find out if there are things that we can learn sooner from those who are not yet affected but have a family history of dementia. We also have a study looking at Lewy body disease. I know I'm forgetting two others, but the link is also on my website to Curran Research Center. So my website is Dallas Neuro-Rehab.com. If they go to contact us, they'll see the information for the research studies. And they just have to click on there, and it'll take them right to Curran Research Center where we can get them going. And yes, they will end up seeing my staff if they end up enrolling in the studies. But we're trying to make a difference. It's one thing to tell people, hey, you have this a cognitive disorder, you have this dementia, you have this issue, but we're trying to help to figure out what can be done to cure some of these conditions, or if nothing else, provide a higher quality of life and slow down progression for more people rather than fewer. So I appreciate the chance to share that information with your audience here, fellas, and I really appreciate it, the chance to visit with you guys. Anytime you would like to have me on again, please let me know. I'm happy to jump on with you.
Yeah, I think you're our resident neuro-psychologist. You're awesome, and I think it's awesome the work that you're doing. I think anyone.
Yes, thank you for that work, by the way. I've had.
Well, both of you are doing outstanding work too, Dom. You know this, so I appreciate you for that, man.
Yeah. Well, Dr. O, thank you so much for being on the air with us, and we're going to plug everything on the website. They can find you at DallasNeuroRehab.com, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, Dr. O, thank you so much for being on the show with us and everything. And for sure, we were going to have you back on, and you're definitely going to be getting a phone call after the Eagles beat you guys in 2 weeks.
Anytime, my friend. You're always welcome in my world. You guys have a blessed one, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Dr. O, you take it easy, my man. All right. So, we learned a lot tonight, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Gosh, it's... So what's a big takeaway for you, Dom? When you listen, and it's a lot of science, but you're the everyman, and I want to know what you walked away with tonight.
Listening to everything Dr. O had to say, very intriguing, very intriguing. I was literally on the edge of my seat listening. I was so sucked into it. It was wonderful. Thank you for coming on again, Dr. O. But if you strip away all of the, scientific pieces of it, what his underlying theme is, and it resonates with me, and this has been something that we've talked about on other shows as well, is that, where is the humanity? Where is the connection with the person sitting across the table from you? Where is the connection with the person lying next to you in bed? Where is the connection with your child when you come home, and instead of putting them in front of a television?
And the answer is not online. That's the thing.
It's not.
And it's amazing how, you look at, they did research where just by two people looking at an event, like a concert, one videotaped it, one watched it, you have more of an emotional memory when you watch it. Mm-hmm. And when we are disconnected, we don't have empathy for one another. It's one thing watching it on TV. Mm-hmm. It's another thing actually going down and talking to people, and that's where we look at, what do we take from it? What do we learn? And I think, one, week after week with expert after expert, it's all like, no, this stuff is going on. Our chemistry is being used against us. We're being played against each other. Mm-hmm. But we can insulate ourselves. The bottom line is, as Ron said last week in Dr. O, this stuff only works if you don't know what's going on. And so if we continue to have these discussions and know what's going on, and we're made aware of it, we can't fall for it. And then it's, what do we do to insulate ourselves? We connect. We talk. We go offline. We make it more in person. We try to teach our kids different lessons. We try to have different, influences in our life. And bottom line, we all need to stand up and start saying something.
If one person who heard our show tonight thinks about the next time they're at dinner with somebody and they're on their phone, to remember our show and maybe put their phone down and just take a chance and actually talk to the person.
Yeah. Oh my God!
Then at least we changed one person.
One person, And I thought he had a great point of, if you look at all these retailers where all these Black Fridays, go and support ones like REI that don't know. We're going to send our people home. No, we're not going to be open on Thanksgiving. We're not going to be open on Black Friday. Maybe it's time that we should start something. I think we should get the intern on it.
I am a proud member of REI.
I know.
And I support their company. They are a wonderful
free plug for REI.
Oh,
I
will pub them all day.
Oh, we're going. I think we should. We should definitely hashtag them.
Wonderful company.
We're gonna get the intern on that one.
There we go.
Although if we try to tell people not to shop, we might get in trouble. We might get sued. We might have to get some legal console on that. But if parents out there, so we got a lot of work to do. But we at least know who we're up against. We know what they're doing, and now it's on us just to connect and get on the same page and start doing something about it. So, with that being said, another illustrious, another amazing installment of Gray Matters. I am Michael Devine, everyman, Dominic Pusella. And just to remind you, not blue, not red, keep it gray, America. Good evening.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gray Matters Radio with Michael Devine. For more episodes and information, visit us online at graymattersradio.com. Join the conversation by following Gray Matters Radio on Facebook and Twitter. Gray Matters Radio is a proud member of the HC Universal Network family of podcasts. For more live episodes of this and other great shows, download the free HC Universal Network app at hcuniversalnetwork.com. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, remember, think about the gray.
Here today, gone today? The pace of change can be confusing. Then again, it can be inspiring. Every year, Harvard Business School Executive Education helps executives like you build the self-confidence and decision-making skills it takes to thrive on change. Fight change with change. Go. Start by going to hbs.me/go. That's hbs.me/go.